Hey guys, I've got some very important information that I want you to listen to and try to understand and get a grasp on, because sometimes people just need to see the facts. This is not fear mongering, this is fact mongering. I just got off the phone with Terrell. He works for the Andersons Incorporated. They move massive piles of grain. I don't mean a little bit. I mean half of what comes out of Louisiana almost is moved by them. They can load 120 train cars, which is 450,000 pounds of corn in 8 hours. And the turnaround's about 2 days. They moved 82 million bushels last year. This is a big deal. These are major players, and they are giving you a warning. I was able to get with him on the phone, and I want you to listen to the conversation. And please hit the like button and share this information. It is very important. I'm going to tell you again, it's very important to like and share, because this information is so important. If this doesn't make you prepare and get ready for the shortages that are coming, nothing will. He also gave me an email. You'll hear it in the conversation. I'll put it in the description if you want to look at it. Take it for what it's worth. This is facts from the horse's mouth that deals with it every day. So, roll it.
Try to keep people posted on what's going on around us, especially with grain and our food supply. Would you mind if I recorded this conversation? And
sure, man. That's fine.
Okay. I'll just kind of let you explain what you do and the amount of grain that you deal with, and just kind of go from there and kind of get into. Do you have some type of thesis that you think is going to play out? I mean, how do you see this thing?
Man, everybody that does. So, okay, number one, what we do, we buy and sell grain from the farmers. We buy it from the farmer. We sell it to probably 90% of what we sell goes to, in corn anyway, goes to feed chickens. And we hit some of the big ones. We've Sanderson Farms, Tyson, Rayford, or House of Rayford, Cook, Pico, just to name a few. And by rail, we're able to service, I can bring a 120 car unit train into my facility. I can load it with, 450,000 bushels of corn in 8 hours and have it, go unload within 2 days, have it back here to load again. Last year, we handled 32 million bushels of corn through this facility here in Delhi. We loaded 87 barges at Tallulah at harvest, and we loaded 49 trains here at Delhi during harvest. After that, it kind of petered out, to where we just were doing our normal sales. Like Pico and Morton, they both account for probably a third of my business, Chris. I sell them roughly 3 trains a month all year long. So, I could almost just keep those 2 customers and stay in business. But, at this time of year during harvest, we're fortunate in the fact that we're the first major crop in the U.S. that comes off. So we're able to hit markets that are starving for corn earlier than anybody else. Now, once we start harvest, then, Mississippi follows and Arkansas, and then, the Midwest starts probably a month after us. But, we're fortunate in the fact that we can hit some markets that nobody else can. But once the pipelines start getting full and everybody starts cutting corn all over the U.S., then these, Mayday markets kind of shut down for us. So then in that scenario, it pays us to carry the corn and sell it at a later date. Nowadays, the population in the world has gotten so big. It used to be that the United States fed the whole world. Well, that's not the case anymore. The South America, is a big-time player now in the ag industry. The Ukraine accounts for 20% of the world's corn supply, and they account for about 15% of the world's wheat supply. So them being out of the game is a huge deal. And the thing is now, the population has gotten so big that the United States can no longer feed the whole world by itself. South America this year has been in a drought all year long. And as you know, South America grows crops 365 days a year. So when they harvest their bean crop, they are planting corn behind their beans. When they harvest their corn, they're planting beans, and it goes on and on and on. They never stop. Well, they've been in a drought all year this year. So they have already declared that they will be short 60 million metric tons of soybeans. Now, 3 years ago, that would have been a catastrophe for South America. However, in the last 3 or 4 years, they have, been taking down the rainforest. I'm sure you've read about all that, and clearing out rainforest in order to make more room for crop ground. So they have now got, several million more acres of production. So, a 60 million metric ton bean loss, that's a huge loss. But they can absorb it now because they have so many more acres in production.
Well, okay, so what is that? So that they lost 60 million, but it's not going to be that big of a deal, or it's just going to be half as big of a deal?
It's still a big deal. A couple of factors play into that. Number one, crush margins. Most soybeans are crushed into oil, okay? The crush margins for soybeans are not what they used to be. So the demand for soybeans is not what it used to be. The other thing about soybeans is, they're also used to feed hogs in China. Well, here a couple of years ago, China had some kind of swine flu or something, and it wiped out a major part of their hog population. So they're not using beans as much as they were. So for them to have a 60 million ton loss, yes, it's a big deal. Yes, they can absorb it with more acreage now, and because of less demand for soy, it's not as big a deal. Like I said, 4 years ago, this would have been a huge deal. Soybeans would be $25 a bushel, but we're not in that market right now.
Okay, so talking about soybeans, go ahead.
So just saying, it is a big deal, Chris, but it's not as big a deal as it could be. Okay. If you were more focused on corn, I'm sorry, I trade both of them. I get kind of
no. I want to know about all of them because
and you got to understand they all correlate. That they all coincide with one another. There's a bean to corn ratio on everything that we do. So, but the big story now to me and to you, I think, is corn. Well,
wait a minute. Before we go to corn, keep going with corn, I want to ask you real quick about the soybean because I know it takes much more nitrogen to grow corn. Fertilizer prices are high. Are you seeing more people grow soybeans because it's cheaper to grow? Is there going to be a glut of soybeans here?
There has been some of that. But, I've got a producer's budget that I put out every year. And in that budget, they can go in and they can key in the price for today, and they can go in and key in their exact price for their inputs, for their labor, for their rent, for everything, so they can see what pencils best. Now, corn is a much more expensive crop to grow than beans. However, with corn, you're cutting 200 bushels to the acre. With beans, you're cutting 50 bushels to the acre. So beans can be at $15 a bushel, but if corn's at $7 a bushel and you cut a hell of a corn crop, corn is going to pay you more than beans ever will. And the thing about beans is it is such a fickle plant. Sure, your inputs aren't there, but like, for instance, this year, because of the time window when you plant them, the weather, since June 1st, we've been in the upper 90s since June 1st. We hadn't had a summer like this in 6 years. Well, that heat will cook those beans. Those beans will look okay from the road, and they can be irrigated. And most of the ground here in northeast Louisiana is irrigated now. We have a few dry land spots that are not irrigated, but most of the ground is irrigated, and it's almost a must. If you're going to be a farmer in northeast Louisiana, you better be irrigated because if you run into a summer like this, and your whole crop's going to be cooked. So, even with irrigation, though, nothing substitutes for Mother Nature. So
you're saying the beans actually get cooked even though the plant looks fine. They just
the plant can look fine, and I can speak from experience on this because last Friday I walked through about 15 different bean fields with some of my customers, and from the road they're chest-high beans. They're beautiful-looking beans, but you get out there and there's no pods on them because they didn't get the moisture. They didn't get the moisture, and they didn't get the cool nights while they were flowering to fill up those pods to big, fat, healthy beans. Most of the pods are flat with little bitty small beans in them, and they're just not. We pay on weight. When I bring that truck in here, whether it's full of corn or beans, we weigh it. We determine, what the empty weight is, and that's what you get paid on. You get paid on weight. And these beans out here right now don't weigh anything, so you're going to have to cut, twice as much of the field to fill up a truck as you would have last year when we had 80, 90 bushel an acre soybeans. This year, my prediction here, if we cut 50 bushels across the board, meaning 50 bushels to the acre, then that's a blessing for us. If we cut 180 bushels to the acre in corn, that's a blessing for us. Now let's back up to last year and compare that to last year. Last year, our average corn was 215 bushels to the acre. So we're 35 bushels to the acre off on corn this year. Beans last year were 70 bushels to the acre. So I'm afraid we're going to be probably 20 bushels to the acre off on beans. Not to mention, with corn, the acres in the U.S. this year is 89.5 million acres of corn is what the USDA says we have planted. Well, that's not counting preventative plant, which is your insurance, the guys that, bought preventative plant that planned on planting those acres when they reported to the USDA, but however, due to rain or whatever condition, they were not able to get those acres planted. So that 89.5 million is not 89.5 million. What is the real number? Who knows? The USDA maybe know, maybe they don't know, but the USDA has a way of manipulating the numbers so it suits their purposes.
Oh, yeah.
As with most governmental agencies. But
right.
So, last year we had 93 million acres of corn in the U.S., and we had a bumper crop. Last year the average yield in the United States was 177 bushels to the acre. This year, they're calling for 177 bushels to the acre. That's what the USDA is saying it will be. However, the company I work for, the Andersons, we have 30 locations nationwide. Every Wednesday, all the elevator managers like myself, we have a call. We talk about crop conditions. We talk about farmer selling. We talk about basis levels. We talk about all that every single week. 80% of the guys on that call say their crop is not where it should be. And I'm one of those guys. Like I just told you, we're 35 bushels off on our corn. And I know because we're cutting some now. So I've got a real life example of what the corn's doing. And that's not, as it is right now, we've just kind of started, Chris, so that's a small sample. But some of my best farmers are hauling to me right now, and their yields are not what they were hoping they would be. So that makes me nervous that everybody's going to be that way. Hopefully not, but it makes me extremely nervous.
Okay.
And on top of, like I told you before, the Ukraine supplies a fifth of the world's corn supply. Well, there's a lot of problems with the Ukraine, as we well know. They're talking about they've got some old crop, from last year that they can ship out when they, talked about the humanitarian trade route or whatever, which that lasted all of about 3 days because I think Putin bombed the port the day after they agreed to do that. So that deal's out. There's not much corn that's going to come out of Ukraine this year, if anything. They're saying that they're going to have something come out, but in my opinion, and I've got an email that I can shoot over to you that a buddy of mine put together, and it's a PowerPoint about what all is going on in Ukraine right now, and it's very informative. I'll be happy to shoot that over.
That'd be great. Yeah, I'll email you.
It's like 6 slides. It's not even a big deal, but it tells the story. So you add all that together. South America is going to be short corn this year. The United States is going to be short corn this year. Ukraine is going to be short corn this year. So that all adds up to a pretty big short. Now, you don't hear anybody really talking about that. As a matter of fact, you don't hear anybody talking about South America at all. And South America is the number 2 biggest player in agriculture in the world. And this year I didn't realize that. Yes, and they have had one of the roughest years they've had in a long time, and you don't hear anything about it. Normally in my job, that's all I'm ever talking about, is South America. Well, this year, when it's a terrible situation in South America, they're not talking about it. So that's a cause for concern. I'm just trying to think. I mean, Chris, any question? I know I've rambled on and on.
No, you did a great job. You covered some ground, brother.
And if there's any specific questions, fire away.
Okay, so just some real simple ones, and I'll let you get back to your day because I know you're super busy, and I'm sure I'll have some more. But who's this going to? This seems to affect Europe the most. Would you say? The Ukraine problem, for sure.
It affects Europe a lot. It also affects some of those, a lot of those African countries, because they rely on China. I mean, not China. They rely on Russia to get their seed, to plant their crops and stuff they plant over there. Well, Russia is in the middle of a war. They're not shipping out any seed. So, I mean, like Niger and I don't know all the names of those countries over there, but they're in trouble. There's a lot of those people that are going to starve to death because of this.
I figure I've been saying this for months. It's going to be sickening to see what happens overseas.
It's already happening. You just don't see it in the mainstream media. It's already happening. And that's another big deal that the U.S. relies on China. We have to have China as a player to buy our crop. Okay, we have to. Now, we're going to use a lot of our crop domestically, but we have to have that big export trade with China in order for us to continue to produce the amount of acres we're producing and still be successful at it. We couldn't just feed, the United States couldn't just feed, I mean, I guess if we had to, we could, and that's a good reserve to have, if we get cut off by the rest of the world. We could feed ourselves. But for commerce reasons, for the farmer to be able to make money, for our businesses to be able to make money, we've got to have that export trade with China. China is an imperialistic country just like Russia is. So China has kind of sided with Russia in this Ukraine deal. Russia supplies 95% of China's wheat. So China cannot afford to piss off Russia and Russia not trade wheat with them anymore. So the trade has been extremely quiet with China right now between us and China because they're just playing their cards close to their vest. They don't want to piss off Russia by trading with us, and then Russia say, okay, well, we're done with y'all. So that's a cause for concern too. Now, China's going to have to come to the table at some point. They're going to have to come to the table because they cannot feed their population demands with Russia and Ukraine alone. There's no way. They've got to come to us. They've got to come to South America. So they'll come to the table, but that's just the way the Chinese are. That they are very good poker players.
Oh yeah, they plan for years in advance, decades in advance. They're playing chess.
That's exactly what they're doing, and they are not one to. They don't bluff and they don't tell.
Yeah. This thing is a global. Every day I learn about it, the more I realize how global it is. Everything in every country affects every other country. It seems, especially when it comes to the superpowers that are creating their own currency, their own global currency.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, Chris? Could you imagine the panic here at home in the U.S. if we go to a rationing situation? Where we have to ration out our food stocks. I mean, world, the country that we live in, is such a wasteful country. I mean, these people wouldn't know what to do. It would be pandemonium.
And guys, and for everybody that's.
And I'm not saying that's going to happen anytime soon.
No.
Chris,
but it's on your mind.
It could happen, and thank God we live in the U.S. if it does happen, because we can grow our own food. Not everywhere can do that. We can.
And you move. How much of grain do you move total? How big of a supplier are you? That's what I'm getting at. Is we're learning this and hearing this from somebody that's in the know. It's not happening yet, but brace for impact and get some food.
Perspective for you, Chris. So last year, according to the USDA, the state of Louisiana produced 70 million bushels of corn. We handled here at my elevator 32 million bushels of corn. So we handled damn near half of the corn crop in the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
So, we're pretty big players in Northeast. Now, look, Louisiana doesn't make a blimp on the screen for the rest of the U.S. I mean, we're small potatoes compared to the rest of the U.S. You go to somewhere up in Iowa, there's no telling how many bushels they produce every year. Probably closer to 500,000 bushels instead of 70,000 bushels.
But like you said, you've been talking to those guys too, and they're saying
their crop's not there. Well. It's not there. You have spots in Iowa that look good. You have spots in Illinois that look good. Nothing in Nebraska looks good. Not much in Colorado looks good. South Dakota's in okay shape. North Dakota's in terrible shape. Minnesota is about half of what they normally are. And those are just some big players there. Missouri is burnt up. Kansas is burned up. Kansas may not even have a crop. That's how bad it is in Kansas.
Wow.
So it's definitely, if somebody's not paying attention, they ought to be, because this affects all of us. It affects every one of us. And, the biggest crux in this whole marketing year this year has been the Russia-Ukraine war. But the trickle-down effect of these smaller countries, like we mentioned before, it's and you're not seeing it. You're not reading about it. You're not seeing it, but it's going on. I'm here to tell you. And you're going to see people starving to death. You're going to see a lot of stuff, and not to mention What's your email address, Chris? I'm gonna shoot you this email over real quick.
Shoot it to ninjanationreport@gmail.com. That'd be a good one.
ninjanationreport@gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and just scroll down to the bottom. It's got these slides that my buddy added, and I just added them to my daily email. And look, man, if you want to, I can put you on my distribution list, and you can get my daily emails. I send out a report every day of what's going on in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll just share it with the people in the community that are paying attention, and we'll just try to, that way.
It's simple. I do a rundown of corn, beans, and wheat. That's all I do, and it's about 3 paragraphs with some charts and stuff, and that's it, man. It's nothing to it, but it's very good information.
Right. That's great, man. Man, I really appreciate you coming on, brother. Thank you so much, and we'll I'll be touching base with you.
Hey, anytime, man. Anytime. This is what I do for a living, and I love to talk about it. So anytime I can help you, please reach out to me.
Absolutely. Have an awesome, awesome day. Thank you.
All right, brother. Talk to you later.
Bye.